welcome back to the Venus Report podcast. My name is Kate. I am an embodiment coach, yoga teacher, and astrologer.
And my name is Liz. I am a content producer and studying herbalist focused on seasonality, and this is Astrology Unhinged.
So this week, we want to talk about the eclipses. But first, a little bit about our podcast. Me and Liz are sisters, and we've been studying and observing astrology our whole lives. This podcast, the intention behind it is to bring you wisdom and tools so you can apply the wisdom of astrology and the planets and the signs into your own life and begin to manifest a life that you truly desire and perhaps build a business. We are also focused on that as well.
Yes, and if you are at all into self-actualization, self-discovery, you are definitely going to gain something from these conversations. So please feel free to like and subscribe to our YouTube. If you're listening on Spotify, give us a like or however that works on that app. I don't even know. And yeah, so we have a lot of resources in the description for you. We've got resources about how to read birth charts, as well as some links to our work. So feel free to check that out at the end of the episode.
So this week we are talking about eclipse season. We are in it right now. We're recording this mid-October. But eclipse season 2023 happened, October 14th until about October 28th. And eclipses always happen in seasons. And this is because eclipses happen on a certain axis, and that those eclipse series last about 2 years. But we've got eclipses about every 6 months. So we've got around like 6 to 10 per year. It depends on the year. About 6 eclipses per year. So they're not uncommon, although they are noteworthy because it's kind of like a storm, an energetic storm that happens up in the cosmos and then affects us on Earth. So it's always great to look out for these storms energetically so you can prepare and be ready for them. Also, eclipses happen on the node points, the north and south node points of the moon, which are points of destiny. They're said to affect karma and legacy. So when eclipses happen, when the sun passes over, or the moon passes over the sun and eclipses the sun, for example, we've got this blocking of our luminaries, this blocking of the light. So there's shadow that comes up, and our light source that usually is really, really stable is temporarily blocked off. So energetically, this can feel a bit like a storm or like a little bit like chaos, right? The lights go out, as you will. So that's why we want to talk about it. I love eclipses. I don't love them, but I love the node points. I love the node points. So yeah, we want to talk about the eclipses, and we've got 6 important things to know about eclipse season this year.
Yes, this year specifically, we're going to be talking specifically the Aries Libra axis, even though it might kind of fuse into the Scorpio Taurus axis in terms of symbolism with what we're saying here. But yeah, this is specifically for this eclipse season, October, all the way until when, Kate?
So October 28th is the last eclipse of this season, and then again we'll start back up in March. So that's the last of this year.
Okay. Yeah.
So
last
first thing,
of the year.
yeah. So first thing that I would really say to know about this eclipse season is that October 28th is the last eclipse for a long time on the Taurus and Scorpio axis. So this is a story that has been unfolding since 2021. So 2021 up until now, mid-October 2023, we've been having eclipses on the Taurus-Scorpio axis. The Taurus-Scorpio axis is all about life, death, and rebirth, right? Scorpio is the compost and the soil and the darkness of what lies underneath. Taurus is like the flower growing out and seeking the light and coming out into its environment. Taurus also has to do with money. Taurus is ruled by Venus. So a lot of Venusian themes of how you relate to others is big. There'll be the last eclipse that's happening for the next 9 years or so on this axis. So what story has been unfolding for you since 2021 in terms of your relatability and your depth, how you relate to others, how you experience intensity, how you relate to your nervous system, how you respond versus react in the world, your sexual energy, creativity. Taurus is very practical, but it's also creative. So at this point, this is one thing I would say is October 28th on the day of, give yourself some time and space if you can, if you have the resources to sink in, relax. You know, you don't have to do anything on eclipse days, but the effects last a while. So take out your journal, ask yourself, what are you really tying up in those parts of your life?
Yes. Yes. And I recently have been thinking about starting a journal to track things like this, and I highly recommend. I just feel like this is a good place to start, even if this is totally random to you. Eclipses are probably one of the best things to note because they can be very quick. I mean, we're talking about the nodes of the moon, so it's very much like Mercury. The moon is very quick and very fast and exchanging and going in and out and things like that. So if you can find a way to track how this is affecting you, and yeah, like Kate said, tap into the energy of the regenerative aspects of life, like organic growth. Like, how is that relating to you now? And is there something that is coming to a culmination with that because we are now at the end of the Scorpio Taurus eclipses? So I have my first tip for these eclipses, starting with the Aries Libra. We've already started with Libra this past Friday, October 14th. So this is speaking to the symbolism of Aries Libra that you might find in your life. So my first thing to know is the themes of beginnings and endings will be present. And the reason I say that is because Aries marks the beginning of the zodiacal year. It is the birth, it is the youngest, purest form of self. It is very, very focused on self development and how we identify ourselves. It's not extremely concerned with how others see us versus how we see ourselves and how we want to bring will into our life and into the world. It is ruled by Mars, and I have this weird theory about Mars. I feel like Mars placements show up a lot in your day to day more than people I think know. I think Mars, because it is the beginning, it's the rulership of Aries, ancient rulership of Scorpio, but Aries is the beginning. It is probably the most powerful cardinal energy that people can really feel in our day to day. And when we think about Mars ruling that, it's definitely the will is there in our day to day. And so I encourage people to look more into Mars if you are called to do so. The reason I say endings as a theme is because Virgo marks the end of youth and the introduction, the beginning, into adulthood, the midlife, and the balance of both our maturity and innocence as one. This was mainly, I was speaking to the seasonal, cyclical evolution of the wheel, right? As I said, I study seasonality, and the cyclical cycles have always spoken to me so, so deeply in terms of astrology as well. So I tend to look at things as like a life cycle, or just kind of like the evolution of how everything kind of grows and dies. So with Virgo marking the end of that youth, we then are now at the smack middle with Libra coming right out, and it's now we're in the descent. Obviously, Libra and Aries mark the equinoxes, so there's this other theme of balance with light and dark. Um, but with this statement about the endings, um, it our relations come to the forefront, and how we see ourselves now in the context of no longer self-actualizing, but how we now utilize our identity in the context of the world, which is how I see Libra.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Aries, Libra, big me versus we themes.
Yes.
Great.
Exactly.
So on that, the another tip I have is um, notice what themes are coming up within the Aries Libra axis for you, because this will be a story until March 29th, 2025. So from 2023 through 2024 to 2025, about kind of the early 2025, this Aries Libra story will be unfolding, this narrative of me versus we, of no longer quite self-actualizing. Like, you can still be self-actualizing, but in relation to the other, and how you relate, the beauty that you see in the world, your values. Again, Libra is a Venus ruled sign, so there's huge Venusian themes here. So think about October 14th, that was the first eclipse, Aries Libra. Then March 25th, 2024, there'll be an eclipse again, Aries Libra. April 8th, 2024, again. October 2nd, 2024. And then the last one in Aries Libra axis, March 29th, 2025. So these are like touch points for you to take out the journal and check in what's unfolding in this story, and how can I momenticize? I don't even know if that's a word, but how can I move it forward in the best way for me and for others? Right? Because the
Yes.
theme will look different for everybody. Everybody has Aries Libra in their chart. Depends on where it is for you. For me, it's happening in my home and family and my legacy. So it's my ICMC axis. And that will look different. I'm a Capricorn rising. It'll look different for a Scorpio rising. It'll look different for an Aries rising, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the next thing to tune into.
Yes. I love that. I love that. Yeah, I hope you guys have a pen and paper to write down those dates, because that will be super helpful.
Yeah.
Cool. So my second tip slash things to know, um, you may be comfortable observing the will of others during this time, but you are actually urged to exude your own will and utilize your inner power. So kind of branching off of what I was just saying, kind of about Aries Libra, just the themes that we see, and how it is definitively much about the self, and coming up with your identity through different creative forms of expression. And then Libra is very much concerned with the other, and like it's the newness of the other, right? So it's like, how am I now at my ripe midlife, now relating to the world? I just became this person, and now I have the whole world ahead of me. That's kind of like what it feels like with Libra. So Libra can be interpreted as yin energy. Um, and I don't know if people are like familiar with kind of the traditional Chinese medicine and all of the way that people kind of identify yin and yang, but yin is all about receiving this in the simplest form, and yang is all about doing and will and action, right? So when you think about the traditional masculine feminine, it's like yin is feminine, yang is masculine. And there are certain times of the year that relate to each. um, we won't get into that, but this this is definitely symbolic here, because Aries is Mars, right? It's the will, and Libra is Venus. And a lot of people say, like, I have a book right here: Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. A lot of people see the dichotomy of these two planets as like the the divine opposites, right? So when we are on this axis and we're at the very beginning and we're in the cardinal signs, it's like a powerful punch version of yin and yang energy. Um, so an Aries, as it is in its purest form of expression in yang energy, We see the dichotomy in its relationship, masculine and feminine in one axis, right? So this is like the themes that we are seeing. With the North Node in Aries, no matter where it lands in your chart, which I encourage you to just check out Aries in your chart and see what house it is in, we are urged currently to take action, express our identity, and be bold with what we believe in. As much as it may feel comfortable to be receptive to others right now with the South Node in Libra, observe and listen, it is actually our time, all of our times, to lean into the yang rather than stay comfortable in our yin, whatever this means for you and according to your house and where this all lies in your chart. So the way that I would kind of go about implementing this into my chart would be Libra rules my 12th house. Aries rules my 6th house. So instead of leaning and feel like the way I'm feeling comfortable right now is through forms of kind of quiet, like observational listening, right? Like taking it's like, think of a classroom. The teacher is and it's a yang. The teacher is a yang energy in that context because they are speaking and acting out the information. You as the listener are like taking in the information, you're receiving it, you're kind of like thoughtfully putting things together. We're talking about an air sign here too. The theme here is that we are the most comfortable right now observing, absorbing, listening, doing things that are not so active. And the North Node is urging all of us, and it really depends on where this lies in your chart, but still it is urging all of us to take more action and be more bold in our how we are identifying in these contexts and like taking action um, and more active role. So
Yeah, so Mars energy. Mars within the Venusian context of Libra. So the dichotomy of the feminine principle versus the masculine principle, the polarities, the divine opposites, bringing more of that into your own body, like both. I feel like that's a theme, is like bringing both in to your own system so you can embody both, because we're not meant to be in one energy all the time. It's the balance of the both that creates the harmony.
Yeah. And
Which is
maybe
Libra.
Libra is probably with the South Node there. It's like teaching us that maybe we do need to look at how we could balance better those energies,
I
you
think
know?
so too. That
Yeah.
leads me to my last point, which is that the nodes are, the South Node in particular is a release point. So when we have a sign sitting in, or we have the North Node sitting in a specific sign, we are being called in this lifetime, at this moment, to release something having to do with Libra. So how we have related to others in the past, the way that we are attached to others, right? I saw this meme about different attachment styles. And you can be anxiously attached, you can be avoidant, you can be securely attached, which is healthy. So thinking about in your life, what attachment styles are you letting go of? That's a fairly specific practice to be tuning into. The way in which you relate to your work, the way in which you are attached to material things in your life, having a critical think about those and whether or not it's supportive for where you want to be in like 5 years per se. So the nodes are release point, that the South Node is a release point, and the North Node, so wherever the North Node is sitting, and we're moving into this North Node Aries, South Node Libra story. So what we are seeking and is in being insatiably drawn to is that Aries energy, which is self-actualization. It's Mars. It's warrior energy. It's the first sign of the zodiac. So when in ancient astrology, the North and South nodes were said to represent a dragon, and the head of the dragon is the north node, and the tail of the dragon is the south node. The tail is where things get swept up, like dust gets swept up, and the tail is like slashing and back and forth, and it's propelling you forward toward your dharma, or your legacy, which is the north node. So the south node, naturally, we are, in order to move with the flow of life and the flow of energy in the cosmos, the whole reason why we do this podcast is so you can tune into these energies and have them be more real in your life. And you can ride the wave of the cosmic energy rather than swimming against the sea or paddling upstream constantly, trying to make something happen, when what's really wanting to happen energetically is a release in your Libra part of your chart. So look at Libra for you. And in the next couple years, but starting on the 28th, this theme is going to start to unfold and bloom, where you're releasing something that has to do with Libra, right?
Yeah.
And you're letting go of patterns, you're letting go of maybe roles that you've taken up in terms of where Libra sits in your chart, whether it's in the 10th house, career, it's in the 6th house, it's your day-to-day work, right? If it's in your, if you're Libra rising, it's like who you're becoming is probably shifting around a bit. And on the other side of the axis, Aries is the north node. The north node is super powerful. It's really subtle because it's not actually a planet, it's a point in the sky. It's kind of acts like a portal. So there's this insatiable quality to it where you're seeking and you're reaching for satiability, and you can't really quite ever get there. That's why it's destiny, because you never actually get to your destiny. Your destiny and your purpose in this life is to keep on the path. So the north node is the magnetizing force that keeps you on the path of destiny and of your purpose, right? If you want to use that word, in this life. So right now, for the next couple of years, collectively, you know, humans who are born during this time, but collectively, we all have that north node pointing towards Aries. Where is Aries in your chart? So look at that. And what are you doing on a day-to-day basis to continue to bring you closer to your desired full expression of life, but focused on that part of your chart that Aries sits in? And if you don't know that, you can just tune into the energy of the warrior, the energy of vitality, of that newness of spark, of cardinal energy. So there's a lot of like ideas being born and things bursting out and being like, oh, this is an idea. So that's what I would say is like this cardinal energy is bringing us into like a course correction. We're being course corrected with these nodes. And when eclipses happen here, it is said that time speeds up and faded events that would have happened, you know, that are on their way to happen, it just happens. So time kind of like loses its, it becomes elastic in a way, and it becomes this force where it's things just happen.
Yeah. You touched on, yes, you touched on something that I want to mention. So I have a very like unique or weird, I guess, but most people, I mean, there's obviously people who have North Node in Libra, but if you have the North Node in Libra right now, or in your birth chart, it's an interesting thing right now because you innately always have leaned into, and or the thing I've heard about the North Node too is like this dream that keeps repeating itself, and it's like a dream that feels desirable, but you haven't touched on it yet, but it keeps repeating itself over the years, right? It's not like a nightmare that keeps repeating itself, but it's like an aspirational dream that keeps coming into your life somehow, or keeps reminding you that it's there. And it's interesting because Libra rules my 12th house. So with and it's a little hard to see obviously because it's 12th house, but when Aries is now pulling in that direction currently, it's an interesting dichotomy because I am very, very used to what is actually being supported right now. So it feels natural to like be because I'm super I evidently see my Aries sixth house rulership in my day-to-day life like all the time. It's like I'm very, very productive. I actually have a mutual connection because rules my sixth house and I have Mars in Virgo. So it's like it's kind of like hyperactive in terms of like work productivity. I can do things really, really easily. So right now it feels like I'm kind of shutting off that aspect of myself for a minute, like the spiritual connection, the relationship that like the relationships that hold spiritual foundations, and how I kind of view relationships even as that, even in that lens. I think that's a very like North Node in Libra in the 12th house kind of thing. But
Okay.
it's really interesting because Aries is like the opposite, and now it's leaning me the other way, which I'm super comfortable in, and I thrive like I just know it so well. You know what I mean? So it's very interesting.
So what Liz is speaking to, just to be a little bit more clear. So you're going through your nodal opposition.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
It's
correct?
not exact, but it will probably be exact, I guess, in the next 2 years.
Right. So what we're saying, what Liz is saying is she has her south node in Aries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
So if you're
the her natal south node is in Aries. The north node right now in the sky is in Aries. So she's
mm-hmm.
being pulled in the opposite direction, and this is called a nodal opposition. So
Yes.
every 18 years, the nodes come back to the exact place or kind of the same sign. So when you turn 18, you have your nodal return. So the node
Mm.
comes back to where it was when you were born. And then,
Mm.
you know,
That
half
makes a lot of sense.
and then
Sounds harmonious.
9 years later, you have your nodal opposition.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going through that where the north node was in Gemini, where I have a south node in Gemini. So something
Mm-hmm.
else that's really key here is the south node speaks to past lives and where you have been, your experiences in past lives. Same with Pluto.
Mm-hmm.
But past life speaks to your experience there. So if Liz has a south node in Aries, the north node in Aries right now, her soul is really used to these lessons. Like she in past lives, you've known this Aries sixth house energy of like
Mm-hmm.
work. It feels like intense work to me. It feels like
Mm-hmm.
lists, and knowing Liz on a
Just
personal level,
fire energy.
she's like really good at that. Knowing her on a
Yeah.
personal level. And now the south node um, in Libra, where her north node is, she's being asked to let go of something that she's usually striving toward in life,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
It's
Exactly.
interesting.
Exactly.
So if you were born around 1994 in and around that area, you are also going through your nodal opposition, yeah, kind of right now, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
exactly, but right now.
Yeah.
That's what you're experiencing, and it's an interesting time too because you're usually moving toward that energy of
Mm-hmm.
Libra in the
Yes.
12th. But the way energy is going now is it's asking you to let go of
Mm-hmm.
something or kind of like turn in the other direction and be like, oh man, okay, what am I usually letting go of that I need to like move towards? What am I usually moving towards that I kind of need to let go of right now?
Exactly. And it's a bit hard to touch on, like I said, because it we are dealing with the houses of Virgo, Pisces, and 12th, 6th house can be very, I find those houses very reality based, but also like hard to grasp and hard to archetype and hard to
Hmm.
symbolize, obviously,
Hmm.
when it comes to the 12th house. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so you have, if you have Libra, or if you have the North Node in Libra, you're also probably feeling it's also a chaotic feeling to feel pulled in like different directions. So with these eclipses, obviously the nodes coincide with the eclipses, so it's an interesting, chaotic, weird time. But all right, so my last tip, and this was kind of touching on what Kate was mentioning about the cardinal energies. So cardinal energetics of the zodiac are, oops, sorry. So we've now entered an eclipse season that takes on the cardinal energy, which lends itself to new ideas, innovation, action, and creativity. Cardinal energetics of the zodiac are Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, and identify the beginning or the start of a season. So that is the definition of a cardinal sign in astrology. But when the spring equinox happens, fall equinox, summer solstice, winter solstice, it means we are in the cardinal season. It is initiating the cardinal season. So the way these qualities show up in personalities would be similar. There is a definitive leaning towards self-starter tendencies, moving away from a fixed center but signifying something new. The cardinal signs identify major turning points within the year, which is also a really good thing to note. The beginning of a definitive change from one thing to something different is all relative to a bigger story being told. What is that story for you? That's something you could absolutely give yourself a prompt on right now. As I said, I find this time to be a spectacular time to start something like a tracker or a journal, because we are at this Aries Libra, which is the beginning of the end. So it's all in a place of beginning, right? The beginning of something. So with Aries and Libra symbolizing the equinoxes, the time of balanced light and darkness, this is a symbol within itself. An eclipse season along these axes can bring orientation around yin and yang, complementary things, common ground, not having good without the bad, and knowing that the health/status of your own well-being is eventually shown to you by your relations and encounters with others. Another thing that I was intuitively just thinking upon with this is that I just came up with this kind of phrase that might make sense to people, kind of going off of what I just said. Our will in life will always uncover itself back to us as a reflection through the process of relationships. This, I think, is just thematically Aries Libra, this saying, and also this concept. So it's like when you are a certain way, this is like Mars. You are this. You come off this way. Anything that you experience from anything other than yourself is kind of Libra energy to you. So if you come off like super organized, like me, like I'm just like super organized, I plan everything, I write things down, and then you find that you're in a relationship, and then you're now just seeing how organized you are and like how you are super structured. That is just Libra energy to like coming up for you, right?
Being
So
reflected
just
back to you.
in reflection. So it's like Libra is the reflection, is the mirror, and you are the Aries, like you are the Mars, the will. Hence why I said in the beginning, like I think there's something more to Mars that people don't touch on so much, but I've noticed in the past maybe year is like Mars can really, really speak to even how you were as a child, or just like the way that you willed yourself in life. And that's super important, because if you come off a certain way, like I'm sure somebody has probably been like, wow, she's so organized, I'm sure she's a Virgo. But no, I just have Mars in Virgo. So it's like these certain things can really just speak to your identity. And then Libra, if you can at least understand this phrase and understand what I'm saying when I mean Libra as the mirror, I think that could give you some just additional insight into what these eclipses can be for you,
Mm-hmm.
all depending on where it lies in your house system, in your birth chart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One more thing I'll say about Libra, because we're letting go of a lot of things that have to do with Libra right now for the next couple until 2025. And like Liz said, that Libra being the mirror, it really is beauty. It's what you see in others that you think is beautiful. And the reason you think that's beautiful partly is because you have that within yourself and you're looking to build upon it. You're looking to cultivate and exalt that energy within yourself because zodiacally, we have all the energies. Is that a word? I don't know. We have all the energies in us, all the 12
Yes.
energies, right? So many within us. So when a mirror is held up to the self or the other, with through the other is the mirror, right? I'm a mirror for Liz. Liz is a mirror for me. And when I see something beautiful within the other, that reflects back to me the qualities that I value within myself, mostly within the world, right? So
Exactly.
over the next couple eclipses, the 28th will be a little bit more of just like a tying up. And then we'll have the new Aries Libra eclipses come in this upcoming year and into 2025. So what are you releasing, consciously releasing, letting go of,
Yes.
no longer identifying with in terms of how you are with others? And how can you come into more harmony, aka balance, aka ease in how you live your life? And taking off any masks. That's big also.
Yeah.
Like taking off any masks that you've put on if you're the type of person that has to be a certain way in front of people to feel accepted.
People
Explore
pleasers,
taking
yes.
explore taking off those masks for your own health, for your own nervous system.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm now just thinking of all the ways you could really interpret Libra and Aries, and it all relates back to reflections of yourself in others, and that might be uncomfortable for people. I think that I'm speaking to my own experience also, and um I am super organized, and my partner is more like artistic minded, and that like actually like there's a lot of people. Obviously, I'm somebody, I'm like, how can somebody be that way? But there's obviously people in the world who don't work with numbers and spreadsheets and things like that, and I'm hyper aware of it at this point. But it's funny when you are seeing that reflection of yourself and you're like, oh yeah, there's other things that exist, which is another thing that Libra is teaching us as well. Is
Mhm.
there's more, you know? And that might be symbolic for somebody. Like there's more to all of it. And you can choose how you get your Aries is going to be your response, your reaction. You know how people say respond, don't react. I think that's a very Mars telling thing. And
Mhm.
most of the time, we react when we don't have the understanding of the other and when we can't relate to the other. But I
Mm.
think a huge a huge running theme with Aries and Libra always is that you're supposed to have relations and relationships with people so that you can be a better person yourself, and you can cultivate a better version of yourself. How would you even know a better version of yourself if you didn't have relationships with other people? You wouldn't know, you know? You wouldn't know that you like a certain trait. You wouldn't know that you like a certain thing or anything.
Mhm.
It's all about how you relate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One more thing I'll say about that too is if you get triggered by how other people are, there's good reason for that. And it's most likely sometimes um, a thing you don't want to look at within yourself, or a thing that you
Mhm.
hate or you loathe about yourself. And I don't recommend
Mhm.
hating anything about yourself, but oftentimes when we get triggered by, like, it can go both ways. We see something we like in somebody else, we see something we hate in someone else.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, that trigger point is something that we maybe haven't fully developed in ourselves. and we subconsciously really want to, right?
Mhm.
Or it's
Yeah.
something that we've let go of and we have a charge around it and we're like, oh, I don't want to be that way because it's bad. So I would also recommend looking at that and letting go of the charge around that. And
Yes.
there's more to that. That's what I do in my work is somatic experiencing. So we let go of that charge. And that's something that you can talk to me about personally. You can message me or email me about if you want to know more about that.
Yes. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm interested in that, even like the
Mm-hmm.
charge. And it's interesting that you call it a charge because it is the fire
Mm-hmm.
energy that's like, I don't think that's right. I think is the way I want to be. You know,
Yeah.
that's very Aries willpower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And there's nothing bad about the will. Like we cultivate the will. But
Mm,
when there's anger and unnecessary emotion behind an opinion or something like that, it's taking up precious life force where we could be directing it somewhere else.
And yeah, same goes like also another way to say that is ego. How people think ego is
Mm.
bad. It's not. It's more just I think also a perspective of yourself that you might just when someone says, "Oh, my ego is showing." It's usually like somebody talking about something they dislike about their disposition. But
Yeah, the
it's not a
ego,
bad thing.
no, the ego like keeps us alive. We need it to
Hmm.
survive. I feel like without an ego, we wouldn't have an identity, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
there's times when softening the ego is absolutely necessary to quiet
Hmm.
the mind and to relieve stress from our own
And to
lives because
receive.
the ego is the cause of all of our suffering,
Yeah.
says Buddhism.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Cool.
great. Well, we will see you guys back next time. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, suggestions, we'd be open to those. Leave those down below.
Yes, we have an email in the description. Also, if you want to give us any ideas, send us an email
Like,
or
what do you
comment
want to
below.
hear?
Yes. What do you want to hear? Because we want to talk about it.
We want to serve you guys. So, love ya.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.